Nearly 30 years into his wrestling career with still more to come, more to give, more blood, sweat, and tears to give to the fans, more broken bones, torn muscles, and beaten up body parts. Terry Funk still had plenty to give to the fans across multiple continents, multiple wrestling promotions. So let's continue. I'm John Rentham with my Terry Funk Tribute Part 2. So when I last left off with Part 1, it was his WCW 1994 run. And the thing is during all this time, he was working in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He was working in FMW for Onita. The Smoky Mountain run. The Cornette clips are, tell the better story than I can, because he booked him, and Terry Funk respected Cornette and respected the old Southern wrestling style as it were. There was one story where he wrestled Bullet Bob Armstrong. Another legit tough guy who I wish more footage existed of him. I mean, footage exists of him. I'm just saying, I just wish that more, like from Southeastern, that maybe it has to be seeked out. I just wish more historians were able to find this stuff, restore it, find a way to just get DVDs released. Hopefully there's more books, more historical stuff out there. But nevertheless, Terry Funk, who had bad knees since the 70s, had beaten his body up, and even though he was safe, he was crazy, he was breaking down, because Terry Funk, for all his particular quirks and goofs and stuff like that and everything, for how nuts he was and how immortal he seemed, he was still fucking human. And the human body can only take so much shit. But Terry Funk decided, I'm almost 30 years into my career. I'm going to moonsault. And he did. Was it a crisp moonsault like Great Muta or Vader? Even though Vader's was more stiff because he was huge? No. But it was Terry Funk doing a goddamn moonsault. You're going to tell him no? No. I wouldn't even tell him no. And he's now up there wrestling while his dad's booking and everything. But Terry Funk decided to do that, and he did in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He laid a whole bunch of chair that, and Bullet Bob, got out of the way, sort of, according to the story by Cornette. And Funk missed. He hit the chairs and everything. And Cornette says, Terry, what are you doing? And Terry says, Corny, I don't know. And I bet you he didn't know. And he was closing in on 50 by this point. The Smoky Mountain run, though, I need to check out some more of that stuff. I mean, he didn't have, I don't think he had a lengthy run. He had spots that he would pick, because he was doing Japan. He was also doing ECW. He would show up in ECW when Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon took it over. And it was not rebranded Extreme Championship Wrestling. It was still Eastern Championship Wrestling. But from 93 to 97, he would have his appearances. Now, he would be a little, I think it was him, Shane Douglas, Sabu, three-way match, three-way dance, and sometime in 94. And they basically pissed off Terry, though, a little bit later when they broke away from the NWA. And Shane Douglas, yes, iconic promo, not knocking Shane. I can knock Shane for a bunch of other reasons, like the fact he's a crackpot. But he threw down title because they had to rebrand as ECW. They can all kiss my ass. He's mentioning all the champions and does that. And Terry even said in some interviews, that the NWA is a collection of people that left the business in pretty good shape for you, and you should be more respectful. And he should have. In hindsight, he should have. Now, it worked for ECW as far as boosting them away from the traditional wrestling, the wrestling and everything, and making it to where they stood out. But it was a desecration of the NWA. Yes, the title and maybe not the title, but the lineage of the NWA professional wrestling governing body was basically dead by that point. But still, taking a title that was held by so many people and throwing it down. Yeah, no wonder Terry got pissed off. Now he's wrestling FMW. He was wrestling IWA of Japan. King of the Deathmatch stuff with Mick Foley. It's one of the only things I didn't like about Terry Funk's career, because I hate deathmatch wrestling. But I'm not going to say that Terry Funk should have done it, because by that point, he was Teflon. He could do that shit. He was approaching 30 years in his career doing this stuff. And yeah, they were beating the shit out of each other for, I imagine, good money, but probably not as much money as they deserve for literally setting themselves on fire in some cases. But They would do that. Again, didn't care for the deathmatch stuff, but Foley said that helped make him, that helped establish him in the eyes of so many fans. And then there was the chair incident where they had a flame or towel wrapped chair with flames and everything. Of course, the chair is going to have issues because if you swing it around, the towel's going to... It was not a great idea. Playing with fire was not a great idea. But Terry Funk did come back to ECW and did stuff and everything. And I mean, whether all was forgiven or not, or Heyman made, I don't know. But then they built up to the ECW pay-per-view, the first ever barely legal, 1997. Terry Funk won a three-way dance against Stevie Richards and Sandman, thus proving on the show that Heyman had no way to tell time or have a format. They basically had to rush the whole goddamn thing and everything at the end against Raven. Tommy Dreamer's on commentary along with Beulah. And Joey Styles. I mean, Joey Styles was also there. Beulah didn't really say anything. But Tommy Dreamer's talking about how Funk was a mentor, all the stuff that they meant, all the great moments they shared. It would take forever to talk about. Let's just say, glossing over it a little bit, great moments, great matches, great stuff. Now, Terry Funk ended up beating Raven after Tommy Dreamer swore he wouldn't help Funk because Funk said no, but he couldn't take it anymore. He did some stuff, ended up helping Terry win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship, and then the fuse blew. I think the power blew because they were pumping out so much power into that old bingo hall. But Terry Funk, ECW champion. And, this is the only stuff he was doing in 97. He was still making trips to Japan. He was still doing WWF, more on that in a bit. He would lose the title to Sabu at Born to Be Wired 1997. That would be the end pretty much of his full-time run in ECW. That's also the match where Sabu sliced his arm open, doing barbed wire, doing a jump into the barbed wire ropes. Smart man there. Smart man there. I wonder why Sabu basically is crippled now. Can't imagine. He really learned from his uncle, the Sheik, didn't he? But then he did have Terry Funk's WrestleFest in Amarillo, Texas. Big old car. I think that video's on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube, and I need to actually retro review it at some point. I've been meaning to, and I haven't gotten around to it. Done a whole lot of stuff, but he faced WWF champion Bret Hart. And it was his retirement, not Bret's. That would be because of Goldberg. Thanks, Goldberg. And that's part of the reason why I'm still wearing this sweet Bret Hart t-shirt, is because that was one of the last huge moments that Terry Funk had. And he was 53. So he was in his 50s, still having this kind of stuff. And him and Bret I have seen that match. That was an incredible match. No doubt. Terry, one of the best. Truly iconic, great stuff here. And during 1997, of course, he'd retire. His retirement would last for 11 days. He'd go to Japan. He'd do more stuff. But in 97, he showed up at the 1997 Royal Rumble at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Shout out to one of my friends who was there, who said that they got in for a pretty cheap price because Vince was desperate enough basically to fill the goddamn thing, even if they were going to take a bath on the rent and everything. But he wrestled, and fought along with Mick Foley when he was Mankind. And actually, their fighting outside the ring led to Bret eliminating Austin, the referee's not seeing it, and then Austin eliminating Bret and Undertaker and winning the whole damn thing. Terry Funk just beating the shit out of Cactus Jack and doing promos against Steve Austin, where I think it was Shotgun Saturday Night. He did something, Todd Pettingill's in the ring. He said, Vince McMahon, where's Vince McMahon, that Yankee bastard? Jim Ross, where are you, oaky asshole? Todd Pettingill, your mother's a whore. I'm going to have to edit myself there. On live TV. Because Terry could get away with that. Or at least, or they were going to let him get away with it, because who the fuck's going to tell Terry Funk no? So, he then showed up again as Chainsaw Charlie, because nobody will know who Terry Funk is. According to Kevin Dunn. He had just appeared at the Alamo Dome, but they're not wrestling fans. Kevin Dunn, by the way, deserved to be brained horribly. for what he has done to wrestling. He does not deserve any bit of happiness in his life. So, yeah, it was the end of 1997. He showed up as Chainsaw Charlie. He showed up at the 1998 Rumble. 3 Faces of Foley, all of that. Team with Cactus Jack would have TV matches. And then they built up a feud with the New Age Outlaws. Dumpster match at Mania 14. And he was approaching his mid-50s. Still doing some great stuff. He teamed up with 2 Colt Scorpio. 2 Cold Chainio. That did not work at all. That did not work. I can't edit that out, so let's just roll with it. But he would continue to work, and then he would be a backstage assistant for a bit. Actually, one of his most memorable moments, actually maybe his most memorable moment in 1998 was buying time for Mick Foley after Mick Foley almost died in the Hell in a Cell match. The chokeslam through the cage, and Mick, still makes me cringe. Got Terry Funk got chokeslammed out of his boots by The Undertaker, or his shoes. Terry just selling and doing all this stuff. Because he was like, oh, Cactus is fucked. I need to go. And by the way, credit to Terry Funk for all the blame in the world. He was the one that said, Cactus, maybe you should start up top. And Foley's wife even said after like the 1995 IWA of Japan tours, couldn't you have picked a better idol or mentor or hero? It's not that she didn't respect Terry Funk as a person. I mean, I don't know. I don't know her, obviously. But I think it's probably like, you're beating your body up for this. Couldn't you have picked a better hero? And, yeah, but Terry gets chokeslammed out of his sneakers, all that and everything. And that's pretty much one of the last big moments that he had in WWF. He was gone by, I think, later in the fall. But Terry pretty much, helping lead to, the end of Foley's full-time run a year and a half later. But, I mean, to be fair, might as well do something memorable. I don't know if Foley's still walking. I really don't. But anyway, he returned to ECW. A Dreamer actually had Jake the Snake Roberts as his partner. Terry felt slighted, and Terry and Dreamer would fight, the Funker and Dreamer show. But then Terry would retire again in 1999. There are so many retirements I'm skipping over because it's impossible to summarize everything that Terry Funk meant in his, everything that he meant behind the scenes and in the ring. And then he returned to WCW in, I believe, late 99, early 2000. It was sometime in late 99. And Terry Funk at this point, by the way, is in his mid-50s and is still doing some great stuff. He tossed a raw chicken at Dustin Rhodes. I believe it was a raw chicken. Because Terry Funk didn't give a fuck. I mean, think about it. He wrestled Dusty Rhodes. Now he's wrestling Dustin. If only they had brought Terry Funk back before Cody Rhodes left, and maybe they could have had Terry Funk in a multi-man match, and Cody could have wrestled him. And then Terry could have said he wrestled 3 generations of Rhodes. Who knows? Maybe Cody, when he made his indie appearances, did wrestle Terry Funk. I don't goddamn know. I don't think he did. There's nothing on record. But if there is, and I missed it, that's cool. He still wrestled 2 generations of Rhodes. And Dustin, who was well into his career by that point. But he was a WCW commissioner, defended the WCW hardcore title, nearly got his head kicked in by a horse in a match that ended up in the stable against Chris Candido. Fuck you, horse. Because Terry didn't give a shit. Because he didn't give a fuck. He didn't give, oh, god damn. That was so good. I'm so glad that Terry was alright. Because he was really close. Like, go back. I'm trying to remember what show that was. But if you just Google, if you Google or YouTube Terry Funk horse stable, WCW, you likely can find the match. I'm trying to remember if it was a pay-per-view or a TV show. I think it was a pay-per-view. It was either Sold Out 2000 or Super Bowl 2000. But nevertheless, could have been on TV. Whole point is, Terry came within basically very, very small window of getting his head kicked in. And let me tell you, horses have powerful legs, and as tough as Terry Funk is, no, he wouldn't have survived that. And if he had survived it, he damn sure wouldn't have kept wrestling. So he wrestled in WCW for, I think, until early 2001. I mean, the company was basically just beyond saving by the time Terry had gotten there. But then he had stints in ROH. That's where CM Punk talks about the influence of Terry and how Terry was great for Ring of Honor. He wrestled in MLW. And did the Hardcore Homecoming show that Shane Douglas had put on instead of One Night Stand 2005. You could argue that Terry chose loyalty over money there. You could argue it, and you wouldn't really have to argue hard. But I don't blame him. Hey, if he felt he wanted to do it, that's fine. I would love to have seen him One Night Stand, but I totally respect it. He's still making trips to Japan, by the way. He's still making trips to Japan. He's in his 60s. And he's still doing this stuff. Now, is he doing it full time? He's making his appearances, taking his, picking his shots and stuff like that. But he's still doing some great goddamn work. But then, a NWA TNA appearance, I think when they were still doing weekly pay-per-views, he was on a pay-per-view in 2009, I think. I don't remember the exact details of that. I remember seeing him. And actually going back to his WCW run, his first WCW run, the 89 run with Flair, he was into 1990, had the run in 1994, and then actually, I believe, was inducted into the Hall of Fame, WCW Hall of Fame in 95. So you got to think about that. He's inducted in WCW Hall of Fame, already 30 years into his career, basically, continuing to make appearances in Japan, doing all this. Already has all these accolades. Tremendously respected. In his 60s now, makes a return to WWE now. He was in WWF twice, now WWE for a third time. And he teams up with Dreamer and Beulah at One Night Stand 2006. They recreate the eye thing because Foley, Edge, and Lita are on the other side. My eye, my eye, my eye. And that was a pretty bloody match, especially for WWE at that point. I mean, it was as close to ECW as you were going to get under a WWE, umbrella. Ella, A. But Funk wasn't around much longer after that. He would still continue to do his indie appearances for various promotions. He did get inducted along with his brother, Dory, to the WWE Hall of Fame in 2009. Which I'm so glad that Terry was able to get that induction while, A, he was still active wrestling, and B, while he still has faculties about it. Because you hear later interviews, and you could tell there's still some of the old Terry fire, but the man beat his body up for so goddamn long, you have no idea what he actually remembered and what he didn't. Made a Raw appearance prior to Mania 32 to give Dean Ambrose a pep talk and hand him a chainsaw that he never used. And he kept wrestling on the indies, wrestling bigger promotions. He would still wrestle again. He wrestled against Jerry Lawler in 2006 and 2011 and stuff like that. Because Lawler still was wrestling until his stroke. I don't think he's going to keep wrestling. I think he's pretty much done. That's probably for the best. But this is how long Terry Funk had been wrestling. You go Amarillo, all that, everything, wrestling All Japan. He wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom 4, 2010. Teaming up with Nakanishi, Chono, and Iizuka. That's back, of course, when all four of those guys could move better. I mean, and if I'm right, actually, I think Funk was the oldest out of them. So Funk is 65 wrestling in the Tokyo Dome. Approaching 66, wrestling in the fucking Tokyo Dome. How in the world, how can you even fathom a career like that? Still going fucking strong doing this shit. More matches with Lawler over the years and various others and everything, still putting people over. Making more part-time appearances, but still doing some great stuff because he's Terry fucking Funk and he can just keep doing this. He made he teamed up with Dory Jr. for an All Japan show in October of 2013. Marking pretty much 40 years in All Japan. And I'm sure he'd made other appearances. I know after Baba died, it went to shit. And that's how Pro Wrestling Noah and all that stuff got started. He had wrestled in 2016, said that was the last match we made. One more match. One more match. One more match. One more match. Kind of can't happen now. I made myself sad. But on, and I had to look this up, September 22nd, 2017, teamed up with the Rock and Roll Express, who are still going. Rock and Roll Express have been wrestling forever. Teamed up against Doug Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, and Brian Christopher. And that was his last match at age 73. And again, it's impossible to get. There's so much stuff that I glossed over, or stuff that has been lost to time, and stuff that I would want people to share in the comments. But just to wrap all this up, the amount of respect, love, and admiration that Terry Funk had from his peers, from people that he wrestled that were already veterans, to people that are of the new generation. I mean, you think about all the people that he wrestled. All the people he wrestled. He wrestled Edge. And Terry also wrestled Pat O'Connor. Terry wrestled Dusty Rhodes. He wrestled Dustin Rhodes. He wrestled Jerry Lawler. He wrestled Jerry's kid. He, he wrestled the Junkyard Dog. He would continue to wrestle so many goddamn people. He wrestled Bret Hart while Bret Hart was under contract with WWF. But Vince McMahon, who still had respect for Terry Funk, and I imagine probably had to have, they probably had to twist it a little bit on him. Yeah, such good shit, pal. Ha ha. But yeah, twisted. That's what he liked the paralegal doing. Let's get back to the tribute. Terry Funk just wrestled so many goddamn people. I wish the program with Austin, I wish had actually really been fully fleshed out. But think about it. Terry Funk kept wrestling for so goddamn long. Some people had 30-year careers. Terry Funk's career outlasted The Undertaker. Terry Funk's career outlasted The Rock, outlasted John Cena, outlasted Steve Austin, outlasted Mick Foley by quite a bit. Outlasted so many people. I mean, Dory Jr., I don't think Dory Jr. is still wrestling. I think Dory Jr. slowed down at least 5-something years ago. Maybe, I'm not sure. But Dory Jr. and Terry Funk, two pillars of pioneering days of wrestling. Learning from their dad. Learn all that. And Terry Funk, the amount of people that he must have seen wrestling for his dad's promotion. The amount of history that Terry Funk had in his head. And I wish that Amarillo footage existed. I wish it did. I know pictures exist. I wish footage, film, whatever could be converted, and we could see some of that stuff, because it would have been so cool to see. But Terry Funk, truly one of a kind. Nobody will ever have a 5-decade-long career like he did. I'm not saying that some people can't, if they start early, continue to wrestle and wrestle into their 60s or 70s and can't have a long career. I'm not saying that people can't do that. Terry Funk is one of a kind. One of the people that truly, if wrestling, if he wasn't in wrestling, wrestling would be drastically different. Imagine wrestling without Terry Funk. I mean, obviously now that he has sadly passed away. Imagine what wrestling would be like without Terry Funk. We wouldn't have gotten the great goddamn moments, the insane promos, the wild, bloody brawls, but the technical classics. He could do technical work even into his 50s, still doing moonsaults, still doing crazy stuff, but he could wrestle with just about anybody. He could have a great match and make anybody that wasn't on his level, and believe me, there weren't a lot of people on his level, seem better than they could ever be with anybody else. The honest to God's truth is Terry Funk will be sorely missed, and a piece of wrestling died with him. And even though everybody's time does come up, and, when it's time, it's time. His time in ECW is very memorable. So many great moments, the branding iron, all that. His title win at Barely Legal. The NWA title win all the way back in the 70s. He was already 10 years into his career. By the time he went to Memphis, he was 15-something years into his career. He continued to reinvent himself, continued to do stuff, continued to be serious, goofy, but you believed him because it was impossible not to believe Terry Funk. And Terry Funk will absolutely be sorely missed. And this is, I hope, the best. I hope this was at least a halfway decent fan tribute, two-parter to him. just scratching the surface. Honest to God, if there was, if, I had Amarillo history books and stuff like that and whatever, I probably could have just done about 5 hours on him. Because Terry Funk was that goddamn influential, and there are people that, owe their careers to him and appreciate him for that. And just in closing, I mean, not that anybody from Terry Funk's family is going to watch this, but I just greatly appreciate what Terry Funk gave, and he gave everything, and then some, to wrestling. He gave his fucking life to wrestling, because he loved it. Whether he was wrestling in front of a few hundred people, whether he was wrestling in smaller buildings in Amarillo, and I mean, they had decent sized stuff, whether he was wrestling in Kawasaki Stadium, whether he was wrestling a big pay-per-view like Great American Bash 1989, or at Halloween Havoc 1989, or the Royal Rumble 97, or Royal Rumble 98, or whatever it was, Mania 14. Think about that. 12 years. He was already 20 years in his career when he went to his first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 2. And then 12 years later, he wrestles at another WrestleMania. The fact that Terry Funk only ever had 2 WrestleMania appearances is fucking criminal. It's really fucking criminal. But you know what? WWE doesn't define everyone's goddamn career. That's not knocking. I'm not getting into tribalism or any of that stuff or whatever. But Terry Funk's career, truly one of a kind. Somebody who will be sorely missed. And in closing, rest in peace, Terry Funk. You can rest. You can rest. Leave your favorite Terry Funk moments in the comments. Rest in peace, Terry. There will never be another like you.